Next we're going to look at a really powerful element in Flutterflow called the list view. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete this button because we don't need that right now. And we're going to go into the left hand side here and we're going to find list view and drag that into our application. To save myself a little bit of time, I'm just going to grab this container that we created earlier and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it into my list view. And I'm just going to delete this original column that we had in here so that I've got a clean element to use. I'm going to change the height of this container just so that it looks a little bit different from this main container that we've got at the top here. So to do that, all we do is select the container and go down into height, and let's make this one 70 pixels for example. And I also don't want the padding on the top and bottom to be quite as high, so I'm going to swap that to 8 and 8, but leave the 16 on the side so that it still looks uniform on the edges. Next we're going to add a row to this container, so this is a little bit different to this one where we added a column first and then the rows inside. Here we've got our row, and I'll show you why I'm adding a row in here. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to add an image. So we can scroll down and find the image element and drag that into our row. It's given me a default image there, that's fine for now. But I'm going to add a little bit of padding around the edges. Let's try 5, that'll do. I also want to make this square instead of rectangle, so I'm going to select this and I'm just going to set the width and height. So let's try 50 and 50. That's a bit small. Let's go 60 and 60. Cool, I've got a nice square image there, and I want to add a bit of a border radius to this as well, so let's add a 5 pixel border radius all the way around the edge. Now this time around I'm going to add a column inside the row so that I can add multiple layers of text inside here. So you can see I can add one piece of text, 2 pieces of text into my list, and let's set this one to subtitle 1, and we'll set this one to body text 2 just to make it a little bit different. Now one thing you might notice here is that these 2 bits of text are kind of floating weirdly in the middle. So to fix that, we just click on the original column, and we're looking here for the column properties and the main axis size, main axis alignment, and cross axis alignment. Now what we want is we want the cross axis alignment to be at start. That way everything is basically aligned to the left and looks nice and tidy. And I also want the main axis alignment to be center, so that way it's sitting nice and centered inside that box. I also want to indicate to people that they need to click on this box to do something, so I'm going to grab an icon and drop it over here. Let's change that icon to be an arrow. I like this one, I'm going to use that. But once again you can see this arrow is kind of floating in a really weird space. So to fix this weird little floating arrow, what we want to do is we actually want to expand this column so that it takes up as much room as it can. So we click on the column, go to expansion, you can see here it's not on fill space, we want to swap this to fill space. So now that will push out as far as it can, and now we have the icon all the way to the right hand side here like you would expect. Now before I can show you why these list views are so powerful, we do need to start creating our first database entry. Now this sounds scary at first, but believe me, it's pretty easy. So just follow along and you'll see exactly what to do. So on the left hand side here we're going to go to Firestore, which is the database that Flutterflow gives us by default. You can see here we've got no collections to start with. We're going to create a collection, and let's just call this projects. Now in projects we want to start adding some fields. So the first field we're going to create, we're just going to call name, and we're going to give it a data type of string. Now if you don't know what a string is, drop a note in the comments and I will explain, and we'll hit create. Next we want to add another field. This one we're going to call image URL, and the data type is going to be an image path. Create. And while we're here, we're going to create one more, which is going to be called timestamp, and we're going to give that a data type of timestamp. So there you have it. Now you've created your first few database entries, and we can go back to our project. So if we go back to our pages now, this is where the power of list views really starts coming into play. So the first thing we're going to do is select our list view, and we need to click this button here on the right hand side. It's called the backend query button. We're going to set the query type to be a query collection, which means that we want to use those collections that we've created in our database. And which collection do we want to attach it to? We want to attach it to the projects collection that we just created. Now that we've set that up, we just hit confirm down the bottom here. We'll get this little pop-up, don't worry about that for now. What you'll see when we hit confirm is now this list is going to be automatically populated for us from information that's stored in our database. And this is why list views are so powerful, because we just create one element at the top here, link it into the database, and the system will automatically configure each one of these rows for us. You'll see more how this is useful in one of my next tutorials.